We have Shadoe Conkeldurr in Pokemon Go that just came out with the Shadoe Timber reveal. In today's video, we're going to check out how good is this Pokemon. It's actually got some unassuming moveset combination with its Calm Day move. So we're going to see how does this Pokemon stack up in the fighting category, and is it worth your time, energy, and resources to try to hunt one down? And then most importantly, power it up in Pokemon Go. So welcome to the Trainer Club. Here we go. Conkeldurr is in Pokemon Go. It's had a Calm Day, it's gotten Brutal Swing, and now it has the Shadoe form out. The shiny Shadoe is not out yet. Eventually it will come out to the leaders, but it is introduced as a Pokemon in Pokemon Go, which means, what do we do with this Pokemon? Is it better than Machamp in the Shadoe form? How does it stack up against the Mega Lucario, which is the best fighter in the game so far until we had this Shadoe introduced? So does that change the scope of the practice for this Pokemon? Well, let's check out Conkeldurr first before we go over the stats, where it sits, and then what does it do in PvP with the Shadoe form. So this Pokemon is an all fighting type Pokemon. It maxes out at 3,773. It has an attack value of 243, a defense of 158, and a stamina of 233. So it's a little bit more on the attacker type Pokemon. Doesn't really go too much in the defense and stamina. Stamina is better, defense is a little bit lacking, which could cause a little bit of problems when we're talking about PvP. This Pokemon being all fighting type is going to be weak to three things, which is going to be Fairy, Psychic, as well as Flying, and then it's going to resist Dark, Rock, as well as Bug. And the shiny is out. Obviously it has had a Calm Day, and before the Calm Day it was only a hatchable and raidable Pokemon, but now that it does spawn in the wild, it's a little bit, actually way more common, especially since we've already had the shiny. So with the Shadoe form, it obviously gets the buff to the attack and gets a hit on the defense, which is a little bit of a problem if you're looking for a tanky Pokemon here. As far as its moveset go, it's going to get Counter and Poison Jab for its fast moves, and then as far as its charge moves, it's going to be getting Stone Edge, which is a rock move. It's going to get Dynamic Punch, which is a pretty premier fighting type move, and then it's also going to be getting Brutal Swing, which is a Calm Day move, which that move actually made me very impressed when I was analyzing this Pokemon. And then finally it gets Focus Blast, which is a 1-bar charge move. If I see Focus Blast and Dynamic Punch is the premier moveset, so I always try to look over this Focus Blast. It doesn't hit quite as hard, and it takes a lot longer to be able to charge up. So that's where this Pokemon does sit overall, but now it has the Shadoe form, so let's go ahead and check out this Pokemon against itself. What is going to be the best moveset combination, and where does the ER value sit? If we're looking at the Counter and Dynamic Punch on the Shadoe Conkeldurr, it's going to be 45.63, followed closely actually with the Brutal Swing, which is a very dominant dark type move. Guys, remember, Brutal Swing got put onto Tyranitar. That made it extremely relevant in its regular form, more relevant in the Shadoe form, and even more relevant in the Mega form, being the top dark attacker in the game with Bite and Brutal Swing. If you want to see that analysis, check that out up here. Then we have Poison Jab, Dynamic Punch at 42.19, Counter and Focus Blast, which is 3.5 points behind the Counter and Dynamic Punch at 42.18. Then we have the regular Conkeldurr with Counter and Dynamic Punch at 39.38. Impressive right there. And then we have the Brutal Swing on the regular one at 36.68. So if we're looking at the regular one, guys, the 36 for Brutal Swing and almost 40 for the Dynamic Punch is pretty good. Just as a reminder, guys, if we're getting over 40 in certain categories, we're looking really good as maybe some of the top ones. If we're over 45, that could be the top fighting type in the game, but it depends on the Pokemon in the category and the category specific. Psychic, obviously has Mewtwo, Mega Mewtwo, Shadow Mewtwo with Psystrike, one of the top attackers in the game. And then if we're looking at flying, we obviously have the Dragon Ascent on the Rayquaza, which is something that is going to kind of stir us up a little bit. But for this Pokemon, really impressive. Brutal Swing, really impressive as well, which we will check it out in the dark category after we check it out right now in the fighting category. The top fighting Pokemon in the game, number 1, is going to be Mega Lucario with Counter and Aura Sphere at 52.66. And GamePress is updating their website, so unfortunately the Force Palm is not in there, so I'm considering Force Palm and Counter pretty similar, and since it's already the top attacker in the game, do I really need to make it a little bit better just to prove a point? Not really right now, but once that is updated, we'll probably have an updated video when a new fighting type comes out. In spot number 2, we have Mega Heracross with Counter in Close Combat at 47.67. Looking at the Heracross compared to the Lucario in the Mega form is 5 points below that Lucario. That is very impressive. That is the top fighter in the game right now. Going down the list, because we have the Mega Blaziken with Counter and Focus Blast at 46.51, Terrakion at 46.35, then we have the Shadow Conkeldurr at 45.63, which is a little bit under 1 point below the Terrakion. Then we have the Keldeo, the Shadow Machamp, which is at 42.72, which is approximately 3 points below the Shadow Conkeldurr. And then if we keep going down the list, we have the Shadow Hariyama at the bottom at 40.88. On the second page, we have the Lucario at 39.69, followed very closely by Conkeldurr with Counter and Dynamic Punch at 39.36. Mega Lopunny, we have the Machamp, the Gobalion, the Virizion, and then we have the Buzzwole. And if we keep going down the list, you guys can see that with the Hariyama, Hawlucha, Pheromosa, and Breloom. So this Shadow Conkeldurr is extremely impressive. However, I'm going to put one note in here that the Terrakion in the regular form, the Shadow is not out yet, eventually the Shadow will be out yet, is better than the Shadow Conkeldurr without the Shadow form. That means once the Shadow form in the Terrakion does come out, that thing is going to be dominant. It might even compete for the #1 spot against the Mega Lucario, which is very impressive. As far as Shadow Lucario, that will sit a little bit above probably the Conkeldurr. Not going to take over the Mega spot, and the Terrakion, it might be a tad bit better, but just as a reminder, guys, this Shadow Conkeldurr, while it does take quite a bit of Stardust, and you're not going to be able to get it lucky as you would a Terrakion, it does take free XL candy, meaning we've had a calm day for this Pokemon, so you got the candy and the XL candy for this Pokemon without having to raid for it to be able to get it. So that is one major plus here. So I guess it's going to come down to, are you willing to raid for a Pokemon to pay for the XL candy? Reminder, if you use a Mega Level 3, that's going to optimize. Or would you rather spend a little bit more Stardust and have free candy and XL candy, which the Stardust is free to be able to get, but guys, without an event going on, sitting in an Audino nest like I did in this video, which was crazy, it's a little bit challenging to be able to gain that much Stardust, because remember, over 600,000 to be able to max that out is quite expensive. If you had 2 lucky Pokemon, let's say you had 2 versions of the Terrakion Lucky, one was a 98 regular, one was a shiny 96, you could power that up for just about 500,000 Stardust and still have an extra 100,000 left over. The problem is that you would have to raid enough to have the XL candy for that Pokemon, which makes it problematic. But guys, great Pokemon, very impressive here. I really like this Pokemon. As far as me goes, if you guys have more than enough Stardust, you guys have been listening to my tips, you've been saving up, I would say definitely this is a Pokemon worth powering up. But let's not stop there, because this Pokemon does get Brutal Swing, and that is an impressive part to include in this story. For Brutal Swing, Mega Tyranitar, like I said, at the top with Bite and Brutal Swing at 53.55, followed by Shadow Tyranitar at 48.83, followed by Mega Houndoom at 42.89, and then in the 4th spot overall, we have Shadow Conkeldurr with Counter and Brutal Swing at 42.46, followed by the regular Tyranitar at 42.2, Hydreigon 41.64, Mega Gyarados 41.35, Mega Ampharos, Mega Gengar, Hoopa. Then we also have on the second page the Darkrai, which is quite a bit above at 38.53, and the regular Conkeldurr is at 36.68, which is in the 19th spot overall. So if we're looking at this Pokemon, would I say to power it up because it is the best dark attacker in the game just for a dark category? No. However, if you power it up for a fighting type attacker and you're willing to use an elite charge TM, or you save your Timber or your Girder all the way until December, you will be able to evolve with Brutal Swing, and then you could be able to get a Brutal Swing, and you could be able to unlock a second charge without using an elite TM. But my recommendation for this Pokemon would be Counter, Dynamic Punch, second move, Brutal Swing, because you could multi-purpose this Pokemon not just as a fighting type, but it could also be used as this specific instance. But since the regular Tyranitar is so close, and you can get that one with a Lucky, it doesn't have to be a Mega, and you can get more than enough of those to be a very powerful dark type attacker with double stab moves of Bite and Brutal Swing, and that's not even requiring anything but a regular TM, makes that Pokemon extremely impressive in the attacker category. But having a secondary charge move, even though it is a Calm Day move on your Shadow Conkeldurr, is definitely worth it because of how strong it is. So this Pokemon is an A++ for me to power up. Just be cautioned at the Stardust, so please make sure to go after all those fighting type Rocket Grunts, and if you do get a Shadow Timber. That is a good quality one. Please tag me on Twitter at the Trainer Club with 2Bs, which then leads us to PvP. What is the analysis on this Pokemon? So for the Great League, 155 in the Shadow, 189 in the non-Shadow. Not super excited about that specific Pokemon there because there are much better fighting types in the Great League. In the Ultra League, 139 in the Shadow and 157 in the non-Shadow. Once again, better fighting type suited for the Ultra League. But in the Master League, 80 in the Shadow, 93 in the non-Shadow, with the exact same recommended moveset as the Meta Attacker one. And as far as the Master League, better Pokemon are going to be Marshadow, which is going to be a very premium Pokemon, and most of us probably didn't get the best IVs of that one, so probably not that one there. But we do have Buzzwole, Virizion, Como-o, Zapdos, and Annihilate all in the top 60, which is going to be better than this Conkeldurr. So honestly speaking, guys, is it the best for PvP? No, but you could multi-purpose it as a meta attacker and then use it for your PvP team, but I wouldn't power it up strictly for your PvP team unless it absolutely makes sense to you. So there you guys have it. As a meta attacker, very strong Pokemon. Caution for the Stardust, but extremely impressive. Above now the Shadow Machamp, which we knew was going to happen eventually, and now it's officially a reality. So there you go, guys. Enjoy yourself. Hunt all of those fighting grunts. I can't wait to see what you guys get. And hopefully I get a good one as well, and we all get good ones so we can power them up together. Thank you guys for being here as always. To all of my likers, commenters, subscribers, Patreon members. Everybody takes your support, subscription, participation to excellent. I'm going to see you guys out on the next video. Peace.
I want to take this time to thank everybody who supports me in every facet. It means the world to me, and an extra special thank you to all my Patreons. I greatly appreciate the extra support to continue to allow me to pursue Pokemon Go full time, allowing me to create my daily video uploads in the most timely fashion for everyone's benefit. Plus, I get the amazing experience of sharing my creative processes behind the scenes and raiding all around the globe with select upper tiers. Thank you everybody for being a part of the Trainer Club. You all mean the absolute world to me, and I will see you guys out on the next video.